Claire Morgan stood at the top floor of the Morgan Innovations Tower, looking out through the wide glass wall. Chicago stretched beneath her like a silver and black quilt. The river curved through the city lights, and the late evening wind carried a faint hum of traffic. From this height, everything seemed calm. Yet inside Claire's chest, a restless ache kept moving like a tide she could never stop. At 34, Claire was already a legend in the business world. Reporters liked to call her the youngest self-made billionaire in the Midwest. Newspapers printed photographs of her sharp suits, her calm smile, and the high buildings she owned. Her story appeared glamorous. A girl from a small town who built a technology company that changed the way people shared energy across cities. Investors admired her confidence. Employees spoke about her quick decisions and her fairness. People who met her at conferences whispered that she had everything. But Claire knew the quiet truth. Success never felt like home. She had worked without pause for almost 15 years, chasing the next deal, the next invention, the next award. Every morning started before sunrise, every evening stretched past midnight. Her assistants often worried that she forgot to eat. Friends sent invitations for birthdays or weddings. But Claire's replies were always the same. Maybe next time I have a meeting. After a while, the invitation stopped. Romance, too, was a series of beginnings with no endings. Claire had been engaged 3 times. Each relationship started with excitement, long walks, deep talks, a feeling that maybe this person could understand her. Yet each time as the wedding date approached, a quiet fear crept in. It began as a thought during late-night work. What if this isn't right? What if I am not meant to stay? That thought would grow until she could not sleep. Then came the difficult conversation, the returned ring, the headlines in the business pages. Billionaire CEO calls off engagement again. To the public, it looked like Claire loved freedom more than commitment. But the truth was more complicated. She feared silence. She feared the ordinary days after the big promise. She feared that love might ask her to slow down, and that slowing down might reveal how lonely she had become. On a stormy Thursday night in early autumn, the city's rain came down in sharp silver lines. Claire stayed late at the office to finish a presentation for a new energy project. The rest of the staff had gone home, leaving the tower quiet except for the steady hiss of the storm outside. At midnight, she walked the empty hallway, her heels clicking softly on the polished floor. A low sound reached her ears, a gentle humming, rich and deep. It wasn't the wind or the building's machines. It was music. Following the sound, Claire turned a corner and found a man kneeling by a mop bucket, cleaning a stretch of marble floor. He wore a dark work shirt and gloves, and his back was broad and strong. The humming came from him, a tune that rolled like an old blues song, warm and steady. When he noticed her, he paused, a little startled. "Oh, sorry, ma'am. Didn't mean to bother you." "It's not a bother," Claire said. "That song is beautiful." "What is it?" He smiled, a quiet, kind smile that reached his eyes. "Just something my grandfather used to sing while he worked. Helps pass the time." His name was Daniel. He had worked as a night janitor in the building for 3 years, though Claire had never met him before. Rain drummed softly against the windows while they talked. Daniel told her he liked music because it reminded him that even long nights could hold something bright. Claire found herself asking questions she never asked strangers, about his favorite songs, his family, the places he wished to visit. For the first time in months, she forgot about her schedule. They shared coffee from the break room, paper cups, lukewarm but somehow perfect. When the conversation ended, Daniel said, "You should hear the city when the streets are empty. It has its own kind of music." Claire almost asked if he wanted to walk outside together to listen. Instead, the old pattern returned, a sudden, quiet panic. The thought of someone expecting more, a walk, another meeting, a small promise made her heart race. She thanked him, offered a polite smile, and left before he could say anything else. As the elevator doors closed, she heard the faint echo of his humming again. The sound stayed with her all the way to her penthouse, where the rooms were wide and silent. Days passed, filled with meetings, travel, and the usual stream of messages from investors and journalists. Yet Claire kept remembering the simple conversation with Daniel. She remembered how he listened without trying to impress her, how his humming softened the storm outside. One evening, while reviewing contracts, She almost picked up her phone to ask the building manager about him, but she stopped. What would she say? She wasn't ready for someone to step inside her carefully guarded life. Instead, she buried herself in work again. She told herself that was enough. A week later, Claire attended a board meeting where a senior advisor praised her for her unshakable focus and independence. The words were meant as a compliment, but they felt like a quiet weight. Independence had become her armor and her cage. That night, as she stood once more before the tall windows of her office, she looked at the endless city lights. So many homes glowed warmly below, tiny pockets of laughter and shared dinners. She wondered, not for the first time, if she would ever stop running long enough to find a home of her own. Claire did not know that this meeting with a quiet janitor was only the first of many encounters that would challenge everything she believed about love, success, and the meaning of staying. The path ahead would be unexpected, and though she could not see it yet, the city held more surprises, more music waiting in its quiet corners. The week after her quiet meeting with Daniel passed in a blur of flights, boardrooms, and bright camera lights. Claire Morgan's name kept appearing on news screens. Morgan Innovations signs historic clean energy deal. Investors called her a visionary. Reporters praised her discipline. Yet every time she returned to her silent penthouse at night, she felt the same gentle emptiness. Sometimes when the wind rushed past her windows, she thought she heard Daniel's humming again, soft and low like a memory calling her back. But Claire told herself that was only the sound of the city. A gala in Gold late one Saturday, her assistant reminded her about the annual Hope for Tomorrow charity gala. Claire usually avoided social events, but the organization helped families rebuild after natural disasters, and she had pledged a large donation. Duty pulled her there. The ballroom glowed with golden light. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, and music from a small jazz band drifted across the tables. Guests wore dark suits and glittering gowns. Waiters carried trays of sparkling water and small bites. Claire moved through the crowd with the same poised smile she used at press conferences. She had just finished greeting a group of city officials when she noticed a young woman standing near the far wall, balancing a tray of drinks. The woman's posture was proud despite the heavy tray, her dark hair pulled neatly into a bun. She laughed with another server as though the long evening couldn't tire her. Something about that laughter, open, bright, unguarded, made Claire pause. When the woman passed by, Claire asked for a glass of water. Their eyes met. "Busy night," Claire said, offering a small smile. The woman smiled back. "It keeps the lights on." "I don't mind." Her voice carried a natural warmth like a welcome on a cold day. Her name was Rosa Alvarez. She worked nights as part of the gala's cleanup crew and mornings at a local community center. Between the two jobs, she raised two children, 10-year-old Mia and 7-year-old Lucas. Claire felt an unexpected curiosity. She had met countless executives and dignitaries, but something about Rosa's quiet confidence drew her in. "That sounds like a lot to handle," Claire said. "It is," Rosa admitted, shifting the tray to her other hand. "But the kids keep me moving. They give me a reason to wake up." Before Claire could ask more, a guest called Rosa back to her work, an invitation later that evening. When the gala ended and most guests had left, Claire stayed behind to sign a final donation document. She found Rosa again, now stacking chairs with another worker. "You said you work at a community center?" Claire asked. "Yes, we run art classes for kids and free meals on weekends. We can always use volunteers," Rosa replied. She spoke without expectation, as though she already knew most people would politely decline. Something inside Claire stirred, a small pull toward a world she rarely entered. "Maybe I could help," she said. Rosa's eyebrows lifted in surprise, but her smile widened. "Come Saturday afternoon. We start at noon. You don't need to bring anything, just yourself." Claire promised she would think about it. First Saturday. Saturday arrived with gray clouds and a gentle drizzle. Claire stood outside the neighborhood center, dressed in a simple sweater and jeans instead of her usual tailored suit. She almost turned back, but the sound of children's laughter drifted through the doors. Inside, the air smelled of fresh paint and warm bread. Bright drawings covered the walls. Volunteers handed out bowls of soup while kids ran from table to table with art supplies. Rosa greeted her with an easy hug, as though they were old friends. "You came," she said. Claire spent the afternoon painting a mural with a group of children. Small hands tugged at her sleeves, asking for new colors or stories. One girl showed Claire how to draw stars that looked like flowers. Another boy told her about his dream to be a pilot. Claire found herself laughing, a sound she hadn't heard from her own mouth in weeks. No one asked about her company or her fortune. Here she was just Miss Claire, a woman helping paint a wall. When the day ended, Rosa handed her a paper plate with homemade bread and beans. "You work hard for someone who doesn't have to," Rosa teased kindly. "I like it here," Claire admitted. "It feels real." The pull to leave for the next 2 Saturdays, Claire returned. She helped serve meals, clean tables, and listened to stories from parents and children. Each visit softened something inside her. She noticed how Rosa's children adored their mother, how Rosa balanced discipline with gentle humor. Claire even caught herself, imagining what it might feel like to belong to such a place where people shared simple dinners and knew each other's names, but with each warm moment came a quiet panic. During long drives back to her penthouse, Claire's mind filled with questions. If I keep coming, will they expect me every week? What if I disappoint them? What if I can't give enough? Her life had always been measured by deals and deadlines. Relationships, no matter how kind, frightened her with their slow, steady rhythm. On the 3rd Saturday morning, she sat in her car outside the center, rain streaking the windshield. Her phone buzzed with a message from an investor about an urgent meeting in New York. It wasn't truly urgent, her team could handle it, but the excuse was ready. Claire typed a short text to Rosa. "Something came up at work. I can't make it today. I'm sorry." She hit send, placed the phone face down, and started the engine. A quiet evening. That night, after returning from a day of unnecessary meetings, Claire stood alone in her vast kitchen. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, the city glimmered under the rain. She thought about the children's bright drawings on the community center wall, the taste of Rosa's homemade bread, the sound of laughter echoing through small rooms. Her own apartment felt colder than usual. Claire walked to the window and rested her forehead against the cool glass. She told herself that pulling away was necessary. It was safer. Yet her chest felt heavy, as if she had left something important behind. A different kind of strength. Rosa, meanwhile, checked her phone after finishing cleanup. She read Claire's message and sighed, a flicker of disappointment passing through her eyes, but she quickly turned back to her children, helping them pack art supplies into boxes. "She's busy, right?" Mia asked gently, noticing her mother's face. "Yes, sweetheart," Rosa said, smiling despite the small ache in her heart. Some people have jobs that never sleep. Still, Rosa hoped that the woman who painted stars with the children would return. She sensed that behind Claire's polished surface was a heart searching for a place to rest. Restless dreams that night. Claire dreamed of bright murals and warm bread. She saw Rosa's calm eyes and the steady rhythm of the community center. She woke before dawn, her chest tight with a feeling she couldn't name. In the dark silence of her penthouse, she whispered to herself, "Why am I running again?" But no answer came. Only the sound of the wind brushing against the tall windows, carrying a memory of laughter she wasn't sure she could forget. The wind over Chicago howled like a restless train as evening fell. The forecast warned of strong gusts and sudden drops in temperature, but Claire Morgan hardly noticed. Her company's next big project, a clean energy partnership with 3 cities, needed one more night of review before morning. By 10 o'clock, the offices of Morgan Innovations stood nearly empty. Only the soft hum of computers and the distant tick of a clock kept her company. Claire moved between conference rooms with a mug of tea, scanning final reports. Beyond the wide glass walls, the city pulsed with lights that flickered against a sky the color of iron. The power fails at exactly 10:47 p.m. The building trembled. A low boom sounded in the distance, and then everything went dark. The overhead lights blinked once and died. The floor beneath her feet gave a short shudder, and silence wrapped the hall. Claire froze. Her phone screen glowed faintly in her hand, but the usual hum of air systems was gone. She tapped the screen for news. Severe windstorm causes citywide outage. Emergency lights along the hallway lit up with a pale red glow. She exhaled, steadying herself. The tower had backup generators, but it might take time for them to start. When she reached the stairwell, She heard a new sound, slow, careful footsteps coming upward, followed by the soft creak of a flashlight switch. "Hello?" she called. A calm voice answered, "Just maintenance." "Don't worry, ma'am. I'm here to check the systems." Meeting Malik, the light from a small torch revealed a man in a dark work jacket. He held a tool bag in one hand and the flashlight in the other. His posture was tall but easy, his face framed by a short beard that caught the faint glow. "My name's Malik," he said. "I work nights for building maintenance."
"Are you all right?"
"I'm fine," Claire replied. "The power, does this happen often?" "Not like this," Malik said. "Wind took out half the grid. The backup will kick in, but it may take a while. Better to wait on the top floor where the emergency lights are strong." Claire nodded and followed him back into the corridor. The red glow gave the hallway a strange softness, like twilight that refused to fade. They found a small lounge near the main conference room. Malik set his tool bag down and checked a control panel. "Nothing to do but wait," he said. "Storm's still rough out there." Claire sat on the edge of a sofa. "I suppose I'm trapped in my own building," she said with a short laugh. Malik smiled. "Not the worst place to be trapped. Warm, at least." Conversation in the dark minutes stretched into an hour. Outside, the wind pressed against the glass like a giant hand. Claire tried to focus on her reports, but the dim light blurred the numbers. Malik leaned back against the wall, hands resting loosely on his knees. After a quiet moment, he began to speak, not about the storm, but about words. "You know," he said, his voice low and even, "there's a poem I like for nights like this. It says our hearts are homes that ask for light, even when the world goes dark." Claire turned toward him. "That's beautiful." "Who wrote it?" "My grandmother. She wasn't famous, but she wrote poems for our family. I memorized a few." He gave a small shrug. "Helps me remember that storms pass." Something in his tone, gentle, sure, softened the edges of the night. Claire asked if he read often. "Whenever I can," Malik said. "Books, old journals. Stories keep me company." He glanced at her reports. "And you? What keeps you company when it's this quiet?" Claire hesitated. People usually asked about her profits, her projects, her next deal. Hardly anyone asked about quiet. "Work," she said at first. Then, more honestly, "I'm not sure anymore." Malik nodded as though he understood without pressing for details. "The mirror," he offered. The storm deepened. Rain struck the windows in sharp bursts. Claire felt time stretch, and with it came a rare stillness. She found herself telling Malik small pieces of her life. How she grew up in a small Illinois town. How she built her company with long nights and little sleep. How she sometimes felt like a guest in her own success. Malik listened without interruption. "Sounds like you carry a lot," he said. "Sometimes people forget that strength needs a place to rest too." The words settled in the air like a soft blanket. Claire had heard many compliments in boardrooms, but none felt like this, simple, without agenda, like a mirror reflecting her own quiet longing. Light returns just after midnight. A distant hum signaled the backup generator. Lights flickered to life across the floor. The building seemed to breathe again. Malik stood and gathered his tools. "Looks like my job here is done," he said. Claire felt a surprising pinch of disappointment. "Thank you," she said, "for keeping me company." "Thank you for the conversation," Malik replied with a small smile. Not many people want to talk during a blackout. They walked to the elevator together, though the generator meant it was still safer to use the stairs. At the ground floor, Malik paused by the door. "Take care on your way home, Ms. Morgan. The streets might be slick." "Claire," she corrected gently. He nodded. "Good night, Claire." After the storm driving home, Claire replayed the evening in her mind, the quiet poems, the steady voice, the sense that Malik saw past the public image she wore like a shield. In her penthouse, the city lights returned one by one as the power grid recovered. Yet the apartment felt even larger, the silence deeper. She stood at her window, remembering Malik's words. Our hearts are homes that ask for light. For the first time in months, she wished someone else were standing beside her, watching the city wake after the storm. A week after the storm, Chicago woke to a bright Saturday morning. The air felt crisp and new, washed clean by the winds of the night before. Claire Morgan rarely allowed herself free time, yet that morning she stepped away from her tower and left her phone in her pocket. Something in the stillness of the past few days had urged her outside. She chose Lincoln Park, a wide stretch of green where families gathered for weekend games. The early spring grass glistened with dew, and the lake beyond the trees shone like a sheet of blue glass. Claire walked the curved paths with no goal except to breathe. Pigeons scattered at her quiet steps, and the scent of damp earth filled the air. As she turned a corner near a small playground, a paper airplane glided past her and landed at her feet. A boy, perhaps 7 years old, ran after it laughing. His dark curls bounced with each stride. The plane skidded to a stop near her shoes, and the boy's laughter broke into a quick gasp when he realized he had nearly bumped her. "Sorry, ma'am," he said, his cheeks flushing. Claire bent to pick up the plane. "No harm done," she said, handing it back. "You fly this very well," the boy grinned. "My dad showed me. Watch this." He turned and threw it again, the paper wings catching the morning breeze. A man jogged up behind him, slightly out of breath. He wore a simple gray hoodie and carried a travel mug. "Eli," he said gently, "remember to stay where I can see you." The boy nodded, then noticed the woman standing with the plane. "Dad, she caught it for me." The man looked at Claire and offered a warm, steady smile. "Thanks for saving the flight. I hope he didn't startle you." "Not at all," Claire replied. "I'm James," he said, extending a hand. "This whirlwind is Eli." "Claire," she answered, shaking his hand. His grip was firm but calm, without the push or rush she often felt from people who recognized her. She noticed the soft creases at the corners of his eyes, the quiet patience in the way he waited for his son. A simple walk. Eli tossed the plane again, chasing it toward a cluster of benches. James motioned toward an empty seat nearby. "Mind if we sit a moment?" "He'll keep flying as long as the breeze helps him." Claire hesitated, her usual reflex to keep moving, but something about the gentle morning slowed her. "Sure," she said. They sat in easy silence, watching the boy race across the grass. James sipped from his mug and finally spoke. "Beautiful day. Hard to stay indoors when it's like this," Claire nodded. "I almost didn't come. Work usually wins." "What kind of work?" "Energy systems," she said, keeping her answer light. She didn't mention her company's size or her fortune. For once, she liked being just a stranger in the park. James smiled. "I drive a school bus during the week and help at a cafe at night. Busy in a different way." Something about the simple honesty in his words softened her. He wasn't trying to impress her or guess her worth. He was just sharing a piece of his day. Return visits. The next Saturday, Claire found herself back at the park, though she told herself it was only for the fresh air. Near the same playground, she saw the paper airplane again, looping through the sky. Eli waved when he spotted her. "Hi, Miss Claire," he shouted. James walked up with a small smile. "Looks like we're becoming regulars." They talked again, this time about favorite books from childhood and the best places in the city to watch the sunset. James mentioned that Eli liked to build things from cardboard boxes and old tools. Claire admitted she once loved building tiny models of bridges when she was a girl. Week after week, the pattern continued. Claire would finish her early work and drift toward Lincoln Park. Sometimes she brought a small snack for Eli, which James accepted with quiet gratitude. They walked by the lake, talked about music, and watched the changing colors of spring. Claire noticed how James listened, really listened, without rushing to fill silence. When she spoke about the stress of running a large project, he never asked for details or offered empty advice. He simply nodded, eyes steady as though her words deserved space. Sharing truths one breezy afternoon, Claire found herself telling James more than she intended. They sat on a bench while Eli tried to teach other children how to fold paper airplanes. The lake shimmered under a soft sun. "I've been engaged 3 times, she said suddenly, surprising herself. "And each time I left before the wedding. Everyone thinks I like freedom too much." "Maybe they're right," James didn't flinch. "Maybe you were searching for something you hadn't found yet," he said. "Sometimes people confuse running away with looking for the right place to stay." His calm acceptance startled her. Most people either pressed for reasons or offered quick judgments. James simply acknowledged the truth without making it heavy. Claire looked at him. "Don't you ever want more than this?" She gestured toward the park, the simple afternoon. James smiled, watching his son. "This is exactly what I want. A life where Eli knows he's loved, where we have enough to eat, where we can breathe. More is fine, but this is enough." His words settled into her heart like stones in a clear river, solid, real, unpolished. Dinner invitation. A week later, James surprised her. "Eli and I usually cook dinner together on Fridays," he said as they packed away the paper planes. "Nothing fancy, just pasta and bread. You're welcome to join us sometime." Claire felt the familiar flicker of hesitation. Invitations always triggered the urge to retreat. Yet the memory of Malik's calm voice and Rosa's warm laughter returned to her. Moments when she had almost chosen connection. "I'd like that," she said softly. Home of ordinary beauty. That Friday evening, she arrived at a modest brick apartment on the north side. The hallway smelled faintly of fresh bread. Eli opened the door with a grin. "You came." Inside, the living room was small but full of life. Drawings taped to the fridge, a stack of library books on the table, the quiet hum of music from an old speaker. James stood in the kitchen stirring a pot of sauce. "Hope you like simple meals," he said. "It smells wonderful," Claire replied, realizing she meant it. They ate together at a wooden table marked with tiny scratches from years of use. Eli told stories about school and proudly displayed a drawing of a rocket ship. James listened with patient eyes, offering small jokes that made his son giggle. Claire felt a warmth she had almost forgotten existed, a rhythm of family life that required no boardroom, no headlines, no grand gestures, just people caring for one another in a quiet room. An evening reflection later, after dishes were washed and Eli settled with a bedtime story, Claire prepared to leave. James walked her to the door. "Thank you for coming," he said. "You brought good company to our little Friday." "Thank you for inviting me," she replied. A pause stretched between them, gentle and unhurried. As she stepped into the cool night air, Claire felt something shift inside, a recognition that this small home, with its simple dinner and warm voices, carried a richness her own vast apartment could not hold. Driving back through the city, she passed the glowing towers of downtown. They no longer seemed as tall or as certain. The thought of her silent penthouse felt less like safety and more like distance. James's words from the park returned to her mind. Sometimes people confuse running away with looking for the right place to stay. For the first time in years, Claire wondered if she was finally standing still long enough to see what she truly needed. Spring deepened into early summer, and Chicago softened beneath longer days. Trees along the lake lifted new leaves, and the evening air smelled of rain and lilac. For weeks, Claire Morgan moved between two worlds: the gleaming glass tower where her name shone on every door, and the modest brick apartment where a boy named Eli taught her how to fold paper airplanes. Each time she returned to James and Eli's small home, something inside her loosened. There were no cameras, no hurried assistants, no headlines chasing her footsteps. There was only the sound of a child's laughter, the scrape of forks against simple plates, and the calm presence of a man who asked nothing but honesty. A new rhythm. Claire's assistants noticed a change before she did. Meetings ended earlier. Her sharp replies softened. She began leaving her phone silent on weekends. When asked about new deals, she said only, "Let's wait until Monday." On Friday evenings, she often helped Eli with small science projects, tiny bridges of cardboard, model rockets that soared in the park. James would brew tea and join them, his voice steady as he explained how each piece fit together. One night, Eli looked up at Claire with wide eyes. "Do you have a family, Miss Claire?" The question caught her off guard. "I have some cousins," she said carefully. "But I don't see them much." Eli thought for a moment. "You can borrow us," he said with a grin. "We share." James smiled at his son but said nothing. Claire felt a quiet warmth rise in her chest, as though the simple words had filled a space she hadn't known was empty. Old fears return. Despite the gentle evenings, Claire's old habits tried to pull her back. A major investor announced a surprise expansion proposal that would require her to spend half the year in Europe. Her board urged her to accept. "It's the next step," they said. "You can't slow down now." Late one night, she sat alone in her penthouse, the city lights flickering far below. The silence pressed on her like a heavy coat. She remembered the long hours with Rosa at the community center, the quiet poetry Malik had shared during the blackout, and the calm strength of James sitting across a small wooden table. For years, she had measured life by deals and deadlines. Yet none of those victories had ever felt as alive as a simple dinner with a single father and his child. Still, the thought of choosing love, of staying, brought a familiar tremor. What if she wasn't built for it? What if she failed them the way she had failed others? Dinner in the rain. The next Friday, rain swept across the city in silver sheets. Claire almost called to cancel. Instead, she drove through the storm, heart pounding. James met her at the door, a towel in hand. "You made it," he said with a quiet smile. "Eli's drawing rockets. Come in before you drown out there." The apartment glowed with a warm light. The scent of fresh bread filled the air. Eli waved from the table, crayons scattered around him. Dinner was simple: pasta, salad, soft bread warm from the oven. They ate while rain tapped gently at the windows. Afterward, Eli proudly explained each planet he had drawn. When the boy finally yawned and drifted toward sleep, James cleared the dishes. "Stay for tea?" he asked. Claire nodded, following him to the small kitchen. Words that could not wait steam curled from their cups as they stood side by side. James glanced at her, his eyes steady. "You've been quiet tonight," he said. "I've been offered a new project," Claire replied. "It would mean leaving the country for months, maybe longer." James set down his cup. "That sounds important." "It is," she admitted. "But I don't know if it's what I want anymore." Silence stretched between them, gentle but full. James finally said, "Running only keeps you tired. You deserve a place to rest, wherever that is. It should be your choice." The words settled in her heart like stones finding their place in a riverbed. For years, people had urged her toward bigger victories, faster growth. No one had ever simply told her she deserved rest. Claire looked at him, really looked, at the quiet strength in his shoulders, the patient kindness in his eyes. "I'm scared," she whispered. "So am I," James said. "But sometimes fear is just the door to something worth finding." A promise without rings. They stood there for a long moment, the soft sound of rain filling the room. Claire reached for his hand. It was warm and steady, grounding her like earth beneath her feet. "I don't know what the future looks like," she said. "I just know I don't want to keep running." James squeezed her hand gently. "Then don't." No grand speech followed, no glittering ring. Only two people choosing to stay right where they were. A different morning weeks later, summer sun poured across the city. Claire walked through Lincoln Park with James and Eli, the boy darting ahead with another paper airplane. She wore jeans and a simple white shirt, no assistant trailing behind, no phone buzzing in her pocket. They stopped by the lake as Eli launched his plane into the sky. It caught a breeze and sailed high before landing softly near the water. Eli cheered and ran after it. James turned to her. "Do you ever miss the rush of all that?" He gestured toward the skyline where her tower gleamed. Claire looked at the buildings and felt only a distant echo of the old urgency. "I still care about the work," she said. "But this feels like living," James smiled. "Then maybe you found your place." She slipped her hand into his and watched the plane climb again into the bright blue. Epilogue. Light at last. That evening, Claire returned to her office, not for a meeting but to watch the sunset from the top floor. The skyline blazed gold. For the first time, the glass walls felt warm instead of lonely. She remembered the people who had quietly guided her here. Rosa, whose laughter showed her the strength of family. Malik, whose poetry reminded her that hearts ask for light. Daniel, whose humming filled an empty night with music. Most of all, she thought of James and Eli, who offered no grand promises, only a simple truth. Love is not a chain, but a home. Claire smiled, a slow, quiet smile that belonged not to the headlines but to herself. She had finally stopped running, and in the soft glow of evening, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be.